All right, let's get right into it. The last 12 months in artificial intelligence have been, well, an absolute whirlwind. So today, we're going to break down the most crucial developments from the State of AI report for 2025. We're talking about the race for superintelligence, a multi-trillion-dollar gold rush, and yes, some pretty big reality checks along the way. And you can just feel the ambition this year is completely off the charts. We've kind of blown past just talking about AGI, or artificial general intelligence. The new target, the new buzzword, is superintelligence. This quote from Mark Zuckerberg really says it all. This isn't about making AI as smart as a human anymore. The goal now is to create something that fundamentally surpasses us. And believe me, this isn't just some academic thought experiment. It's a race being fueled by trillions of dollars, trillions in investment, in infrastructure, in sheer market value. The scale of the money pouring into this tells you everything you need to know about how high the stakes really are. This is a full-blown technological revolution in the making. Which brings us right to our first section, the race for superintelligence. You have to understand, this past year was defined by this fierce global competition to build the next generation of AI. So what's the big picture here? Well, first off, the models themselves are starting to think. They're reasoning before they answer. Second, this industry is finally making serious money, real revenue. Third, it's become a huge geopolitical race. And finally, you know what the biggest roadblock is now? It's not just chips anymore. It's literally electricity, the power to run it all. So let's start with the tech itself, because the major breakthrough this year wasn't just about making bigger models. No, it was about a fundamentally new kind of model that's driving this entire race. We're talking about what are called reasoning models. Now, the best way to think about this is that these models literally show their work. Remember in math class when the teacher said that? It's the same idea. Instead of just spitting out an answer, it first generates a step-by-step thought process, which people are calling a chain of thought. It's like you get to look at the AI scratchpad as it solves a problem. And the pace of releases was just relentless. I mean, look at this timeline. It all kicked off in September 2024 with OpenAI. But just a few months later, bam, a major competitor comes out of China from DeepSeek. And from there, it was just back to back to back from OpenAI and Google, all building up to the big one, GPT-5 in August. This wasn't a jog, it was an all-out sprint. And this is where it gets really interesting. A little bit of a surprise upset. On this really tough math benchmark, the new model from that Chinese lab, DeepSeek, actually beat OpenAI's first reasoning model. This just perfectly illustrates how global and incredibly competitive this whole thing has become. It's anyone's game. Okay, so that intense tech race immediately lit a fire under the business world. So for our next section, let's follow the money and see how this thing turned into a trillion-dollar gold rush. The growth in revenue is, well, it's just staggering. If you take just 16 of the top AI companies, they've gone from about $4 billion in revenue in 2023 to over $18.5 billion today. This isn't just hype anymore. This is a massive functioning market. And right at the center of it all is the hardware. This number? $4 trillion. That's NVIDIA's market cap. They make the GPUs that are basically the picks and shovels of this whole gold rush, and their valuation, well, it shows just how dominant they are. But this isn't just a story about a few tech giants. Look at this. This chart shows how many actual US businesses are paying to use AI. In less than 2 years, it shot up from just 5% to almost 44%. Real companies are putting down real money and building AI into how they work, and they're doing it fast. Okay, so we've got the incredible ambition, the lightning-fast innovation, and this massive economic boom. But now it's time for a reality check. We need to talk about the cracks that are starting to show up in all of this shiny new code.
So you have to ask the question, right? How real is all this progress? Are these thinking machines actually thinking? Or is there something else going on here?
So the report raises some pretty serious red flags. For one, a lot of the so-called gains in reasoning are so small, they're basically within the margin of error. Performance can swing wildly with just tiny, tiny changes to a prompt. And some of the key tests they use are based on like 30 problems. That makes it really easy to just teach the model to ace the test without it actually getting smarter. And this just illustrates the problem perfectly. Get this, researchers found that if you take a complex math problem and just add this one totally irrelevant sentence, fun fact, a cat spends most of its life asleep, the failure rate for even the most advanced models doubles.
It literally doubles. That tells you just how brittle and easily confused these incredibly powerful systems still are. So, even with those cracks, the field is still pushing forward like crazy. Let's zoom back out for a second and look at the next frontier. What are the big trends that are going to define the next year?
Well, there is a huge shift happening in the world of open source AI. For a long time, Meta's Llama models were the undisputed king. But now, Chinese models, especially one called Gwen, are absolutely surging. They now account for over 40% of all the new models being adapted by the community, while Llama's share has dropped to just 15%. A new digital Silk Road for AI is being built, and it's being led from the East.
The other giant leap we're seeing is the rise of world models. Okay, so we've seen AI generate video clips, but this is a whole different ballgame. A world model doesn't just make a passive video, it creates an entire interactive simulation. The best way to think of it is like an AI that acts as a real-time video game engine, but for reality itself. And you can see the clear line of progress here, right? We started with generating static pictures, then we moved to text to video, making those non-interactive clips like the ones from Sora. The next logical step, and the one we're taking right now, is creating these fully interactive world simulations that you can actually control in real time.
And all of this leaves us with a really profound final thought. We're moving from an AI that just answers our questions to an AI that can simulate brand new worlds and maybe even discover new science all on its own. So, what does that mean for us? How does our role shift when we're no longer just the creators of knowledge, but we become the curators of discoveries made by machines? Something to think about.